We're on a mission to feed the future by helping farmers worldwide be more resilient, more productive, more sustainable for generations to come. Corteva Agriscience. Keep growing.
It's time for RealAg Radio on Rural Radio Channel 147 on Sirius XM. RealAg Radio and RealAgriculture.com is your home for insight and analysis of the issues that are impacting your farm business. Let's get real and get connected with RealAg Radio.
Welcome to RealAg Radio here on Rural Radio 147 at Sirius XM. Shaun Haney, your host here on this Thursday edition of the show. Of course, today's the Farmer Rapid Fire brought to you by Corteva Agriscience. You can go to Corteva.ca to find out more about cross-spectrum herbicides from Corteva. Checking all the boxes for cereal growers. Cross-spectrum herbicides deliver grass and broadleaf weed control in a powerful all-in-one solution. We're going to hear from Rhett Duke here later on in the program. He's an agronomist based out of southern Saskatchewan. And the farmers that we're going to be talking to today, great list. We've got Kevin Buchner out of Ontario. We've got Tyler Lester out of Ontario. Jack Froese is in Manitoba, and Josh Lade is in Saskatchewan. If you have any feedback, you can send me an email, shaney@realagriculture.com. And we take the Farmer Rapid Fire to Bloomfield, Ontario, and we're talking to Tyler Lester. Hey, Tyler, how are we doing?
I'm good, Shaun. How about you?
Pretty good. Hey, what's going on the farm this week?
Maintenance, getting equipment ready to go. Our season is coming on quick here, I think, except for today. It's cold here today.
Is it? Okay. And so how far away from planting do you think you are?
Oh, somewhere between 2 and 4 weeks.
Okay. So what's in the final prep stages? What are you working on?
Checking bearings, greasing everything, making sure all the electrical is making proper connections, just the basics.
Yeah. And all the seeds like all in place, and you're all got your nutrient strategy all sorted out, that those things are all ready to go?
I think so, but in all honesty, I got a phone call a couple of days ago from my seed salesman saying that he just wanted to reconfirm a couple of things. And I heard some interesting stories. I deal with Pioneer for a significant part of my seed order. And I heard some stories from the Ottawa Valley Farm Show that the Pioneer booth was given a very hard time over their seed supply this year. And I haven't taken the time to speak to my salesman yet, but I'd like to hear what he has to say.
It would be good timing to do so, as we're really close to planting. Any changes this year when it comes to your crop mix in terms of what you're growing?
No, corn, soybeans, and wheat, and that's pretty much our staple here on my farm, anyways. And that's what we're going with this year.
How's that wheat looking coming out of winter?
I'm very happy. It's greening up nicely. It looks like we've got 90% or better survival rate, and it's looking like it survived the winter very well.
Oh, well, that's kind of a nice relief, isn't it? You're never really sure, you know.
No, that's the wheat. You put it in the ground and you close your eyes, hold your breath.
Scratch your wheat Pete doll a couple times and hope it all works out. Indeed. Have you been how you been dealing with some of the market activity that's been out there? You know, obviously there's been a lot of talk about tariffs and Chinese demand, and there's lots of headwinds, but you still got to market a crop. So what have you been thinking on that front?
I'm betting on corn this year.
Yeah.
I don't have a strong reason as to why. Other than locally here, our corn dollar has really hasn't fluctuated much from harvest, and the bean price has dropped somewhat, and the wheat price has held reasonable. But my money's on corn this year.
Yeah. Have you had a good amount of snowfall on the farm through the winter?
Yes. Yeah, we had about 3 feet of snow in the flats, and it's been a while since we've had that much snow around here. It disappeared very quickly. We got some rain and some warm temperatures, and the rivers and the lakes, everything is flowing good right now, but the farmland is drying up nicely.
Yeah. For you, for like a start date, how do you kind of look at, hey, that soil's fit, I'm ready to go? What are some of the characteristics that you look for?
I don't like putting seed in the mud, and I like warm soil temperatures. 50 degrees Fahrenheit for corn and 60 degrees for beans, somewhere in that neighborhood, and that's kind of what I like. Although it's been suggested that maybe I should be planting beans earlier this year rather than corn. And the guys that are getting bumper yields are trying to plant beans before corn in this area, which is something relatively new for us.
Been hearing more about that. There are, I think there's a number of growers that's become more of their strategy. But I can hear it in your voice. Sounds like you think, I don't know. Sounds like that may be a little bit risky.
Personally, yeah, I do. I think it's a risk, but I don't know. Sometimes fortune favors the bold. So I think maybe this year we're going to try some of it at least.
Isn't that kind of the theme of farming sometimes when you look at it?
Absolutely. Every time someone asks me a question, I think of my grandfather, who, when he retired, one of the magazines came to interview him for an article. The family farm has been around for a considerable amount of time, and locally he had quite a name at the farmers market. And the first question was, Arn, you could have retired a while ago and gone on the seniors bus tour, and they've got a couple of good casinos in the area. And grandfather said, no, don't need to do that. I've gambled my entire life. I bet on green every year.
I bet on green every year. I love that. I haven't heard that one. That's a good one. I've heard a lot of comparisons of agriculture to gambling, and I wake up every day and I'm gambling, right? But I've never heard I put it on green. I like that. That's a good one. I'm going to remember that one. I may have to ask all the farmers throughout the day here what their favorite saying is from a grandparent or maybe one of their parents and stuff like that they've kind of still lived by. That's a good one. I appreciate that one.
No, that's good. I always come back to that one.
Yeah, for sure. Are you you got this election figured out?
Nope, not even a little bit.
No? Have you been following it at all?
A little bit. My personal take is I really do truly worry that Canada could be annexed. I see that as truly a possibility. That they just have that many more people than we have, and I don't like that idea, but that's the possibility that really worries me.
That Canada would be annexed.
I think that Trump might be just posturing a lot and blowing off a lot of hot air, but that's the threat that truly worries me.
Do you think that we've seen the polls really flip in Canada, and it seems like the number one and kind of only issue has switched from affordability and the carbon tax and things like that to basically how to deal with the economy from a trade perspective with the U.S. and which of the leaders would be the better of the two main leaders to deal with President Trump. I guess, do you agree that is the singular issue, or are there other issues you wish they were focused on?
I would say right now that's probably going to be definitely our significant issue. I mean, there's always other issues. Housing seems to be a hot button topic, and maybe we should be focusing more internally, I'll say, rather than worrying about the rest of the world. But you have to have strong leaders that know how to deal with all kinds of other personalities on the global stage. So,
well, Tyler, really appreciate you joining us here today. All the best to you in 2025 planting, okay?
All right. Thank you, Shaun. Appreciate it.
We'll be back with more of the Farmer Rapid Fire brought to you by Corteva Agriscience right after this.
It's now time for a product spotlight with Vantage Ag. Talking right now to CEO Paul Sigovich. How can Vantage Ag's new sub-nano liquid fertilizer products help growers reduce their costs?
At Vantage Ag, we've spent the last few years proving that our sub-nano liquid technology can replace a significant portion of traditional granular fertilizer at a fraction of the cost. For example, a standard 140-10-20 actual blend for canola costs about $155 an acre. By switching to our sub-nano liquids, cost drops to $53 per acre. That's over $100 in savings per acre while delivering the nutrients exactly when the plant needs them. Simply mix our new fertilizers with your in-crop pesticide applications throughout the growing season. Our products are applied at very low rates, are compatible with nearly all pesticides, and now you have the added benefit of applying the specific nutrients your crop needs exactly when they need them. Vantage.ag, and they can always give us a call at 778-919-3370.
Peter Johnson at Wheat Pete, RealAgriculture.com, and what an opportunity! Oh my gosh! You think you can't grow better wheat? You are absolutely wrong. We're going to show you how to strive for those record wheat yields that they get in the UK and in New Zealand. You can grow 150 bushel wheat. I'll show you how.
Catch Wheat Pete's Word every Wednesday on RealAgriculture.com or download the podcast on iTunes or Spotify. And welcome back to RealAg Radio for the Farmer Rapid Fire, brought to you by Corteva Agriscience. And we're joined right now by Kevin Buchner, who is in Brownsville, Ontario. Kevin, how are we doing?
I'm pretty good. How are you doing, Shaun?
Good. Hey, how's the weather behaving here today?
We're actually getting some freezing rain right now, so it definitely could be better. Hopefully the power stays on here.
Oh, we were talking as a Real Agriculture team over the weekend when there was all that freezing rain and some of the storms and stuff like that in the Ontario area. And I'm not sure what does more damage than an ice storm. Freezing rain can just be brutal if you get too much.
Oh yeah, it can wreak havoc on everything pretty much.
Yeah. Everything okay on the farm there then with some of this with the weather happening as it is?
Yeah, we've been pretty fortunate. Obviously, Northern Ontario has gotten it way worse than us. We're just a few branches down, but nothing crazy.
Yeah. Now, it does feel like on a day like this that spring's kind of a long ways away, but it's not. How are you making it with spring prep?
We're getting there. We're organizing all the fertilizer and everything and chemical on it, or it showed up, just waiting on seed. And then, obviously, we've got some tinkering left to do on the planters, but we're getting ready.
Yeah. Do you? It's one of those things that Kevin. Are you ever totally ready? Right? Like, kind of impossible.
I always joke that our shop's not big enough to fit a planter into it, so I got to wait until the weather warms up, and that keeps me out of the fields too early. So I always find it a good thing not to be too prepared.
Well, when you do have to do that, it's some forced discipline not to get up to that field too early, though.
Oh yeah, and it's paid off a lot of years, that's for sure.
Yeah. When do you think you ideally would like to be in the field?
If I can get a little bit in before the end of April, I'm always happy. But usually beginning of May, mid-May is our normal time of year.
Yeah. What are some of the characteristics that you look for in to say, hey, you know what, the soil's fit, let's go?
Oh, definitely it's got to be dry enough, and then it's got to be warm enough. Usually it's we're waiting on the dryness around here.
Yeah. Do you go corn or beans first?
We depending on the field, really. We no-till most of it, and usually when we're no-tilling the beans, it's into corn stalks, so the ground doesn't tend to dry out as fast.
Yeah. That when you're no-tilling, you're going into some cooler soil. You get, if you need that soil to be a certain temperature when you're no-tilling, you're waiting a little bit longer.
Yeah, and definitely with the new hybrids and all the fungicides that we're putting on corn, the stalks aren't breaking down quite as much as they used to, too, as well.
Yeah. Do you go liquid or dry fertilizer?
We're liquid.
Yeah? Yeah. Just how long you been doing that and why?
Pretty much since my parents started doing it and we've continued doing it. I have looked into dry as it's kind of more economical most years. It's just more biting the bullet to convert the equipment is the big holding us back right now.
Yeah, that makes sense. Any changes to the crop plan this year at all?
No, we're pretty just staying the same route. It's hard to predict what's going to happen in this world right now. So, yeah, we're just kind of sticking normal, and hopefully that works out for us.
Yeah, do you have a crystal ball what's going to happen in today's world? Yeah,
I can't even tell you what's going to happen tomorrow.
I have a hard time telling you what happened yesterday. So we're just living in the moment here. If you really look at it, Kevin.
Yeah, and really you gotta know that you can only control what you can control, and you gotta just live with it and roll with the punches. Yeah.
Well, it seems that there's a lot of interest from growers to put corn in the ground this year. That corn's the best chance for a lot of growers. Do you agree with that?
Well, yeah, we feed a lot of our own crops, so that's a plus for us. But yeah, corn, we got a couple ethanol plants around us, so it definitely has an advantage to have end users around us.
Right. Yeah. It's and I've heard that from a few growers in, like, say, Manitoba, where we're going to see an increase in acres on corn because people feel they've got a domestic market. They don't got to worry about some of the trade issues. Well, there is trade issues with that, but they're further down the line. It's from a livestock perspective where some of the trade issues could potentially be, but it's hard to insulate yourself. I think it just kind of shows how hard it is to insulate yourself from some trade, tariff, and those kinds of issues.
Oh, yeah, it's pretty much impossible. We're such a connected world nowadays.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're kind of really woken up to this during the pandemic. Remember when it was hard to get parts, like, and stuff like that, right? It's like, what do you mean you can't get that part? What do you mean it's going to cost that much? What do you mean it's going to take that many months to get here? That was kind of the beginning, and it's just sort of carried through. The issues have changed, but that's when we kind of really realized how just global in nature a lot of this stuff is. It shows up at the local depot, or it's at the local Walmart or Best Buy or whatever, or ag retail, but this stuff's coming in and being assembled from all over the world.
Oh yeah, it would be, in a perfect world, it'd be nice if everything came domestically, but in the reality of it, it's just they can do it cheaper sometimes than us, and that's what everyone wants in the end.
Well, I almost choked last week when I heard Mark Carney say that we're going to have a built or made in Canada solution on cars. We're going to make all of them here. It's like, really? Are we? That seems kind of expensive.
Yeah, yeah. It's hard enough to get help as it is.
Yeah. Have you been following the election at all? You got that's been kind of a wild ride here the first 10 days into the campaign.
Yeah, it's definitely something you've been following, but yeah, it's been a lot of craziness. It's hard to predict what's going to happen on that one, too.
Well, when I was talking to Tyler Lester before you here, and we were chatting about how it seems like the number one issue for Canadians is which of the leaders will be the best to deal with President Trump. It seems like it's a singular focused election here at this point.
Yeah, it's definitely changed in the last couple of months. It seems before we were kind of thinking more big picture, and now we're definitely focusing on that one issue. And yeah, it's hard to predict now who's going to be the best to deal with him. That's for sure.
Yeah. Is there an issue that you wish they'd talk about more?
Yeah, it's just all the tariffs on fertilizer. It's crazy. And like the tariffs on canola has kind of been glossed over by pretty much every leader. And it's just, that's hurting farmers. Like, it doesn't hurt me as much as the Western Ontario, or not Ontario, but Western farmers. And it just seems like they're not even talking about it.
Yeah, so deal with some. Not a lot of talk about how Canada's going to deal with China, or how the leaders feel about China, things like that. That seemed to be a bigger issue previously. I agree with you. China's not getting a lot of attention. It seems like the American issue is sucking up all the oxygen in the room. One that I wish they'd maybe talk a little bit more, to be honest with you, is like tax reform and Canadian competitiveness on the world stage. If we are so reliant on exports, I wish we'd talk a little bit more about competitiveness from maybe regulatory reform, things like that. But that just seems it's too wonky and boring for this election cycle.
No, it definitely doesn't get your name in the news, that's for sure. And yeah, it'd be nice if they talked about capital gains, as obviously a lot of farmers have to deal with that too. Like it's a big headache for succession and everything.
Yeah, no doubt about that. Absolutely. Well, hey, Kevin, thanks a lot for joining us here. All the best to you in the 2025 planting season. Stay safe out there, and we'll talk to you when we get some crop out of the ground, okay?
Yep, sounds good. Thanks for having me on.
When we come back here on the Farmer Rapid Fire, brought to you by Corteva Agriscience, we're going to head west. You're listening to RealAg Radio here on Rural Radio 147.
If you grow soy or edible beans in Ontario, you know that Sclerotinia white mold is no joke. Yield loss can be devastating, and timing fungicides can be complicated, but did you know there's a new seed treatment that can help mitigate yield loss? Start the year off with your best foot forward against disease. Ask your seed supplier or local Agrimart group to pre-treat your beans with Heads Up. Part of a complete white mold management plan, ask your seed dealer about Heads Up today or visit headsupst.com.
Get all the information you need to keep your pulse crop healthy and profitable with the Pulse School on RealAgriculture.com. The Pulse School is a free YouTube video series covering agronomy, research, and more across a host of different pulse crops. It's also available as an audio podcast wherever you download or stream your favorite podcast. Check us out on YouTube or visit RealAgriculture.com. The Pulse School, brought to you by BSF Canada.
I'm Lindsay Smith from RealAgriculture.com. Join me Monday nights for The Agronomist, a 1-hour live and interactive show broadcast across YouTube, Facebook, and X. Monday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern, I host expert agronomists from all over the country to give you answers to some of the toughest agronomic questions. Join us live or catch the replay Tuesday morning. That's The Agronomist with me, Lindsay Smith, Monday nights live at 8 p.m. Eastern.
And we take the Farmer Rapid Fire, brought to you by Corteva Agriscience, to Winkler, Manitoba, and we're talking to Jack Froese. Jack, how we doing?
Doing really good. Got a good skiff of snow here overnight, covering the ground, making it white again. But other than that, things are going well.
Yeah, are you happy about the snow at this time of the year?
Yeah, we don't mind it. We had some pretty good moisture going into freeze up in fall, and then we had an inch of rain just before freeze up, and it kind of sealed the soil. So we're actually in a pretty good position here, soil moisture-wise.
Yeah, this is kind of the time of the year where we've been talking about this for the past couple of weeks, where we're into the beginning of April, but Mother Nature teases us. One day it feels like, ooh, spring's right here, it's now, and then it's like, oh, back to February.
Exactly right. That's kind of what we got here now.
Yeah, you got everything ready for spring?
We are on our last platter in the shop. We were changing everything over to a central fill system. So this is the last of the platters, and then we got to take the harrow in and put on a new set of tines, and that should pretty much wrap up most of our spring planting equipment.
Nice. Any new pieces of equipment for the farm this year?
No new pieces of equipment. We're still into fixing and repairing, and some of the stuff's getting a little on in age, but it's doing the job.
Yeah, well, I think you look at some of the new machinery sales, I think there's a lot of people in fix-it-up kind of, if you weren't before, you are now.
That is correct. I mean, the costs of everything is just through the roof, and even the repair bills are very significant these days. It used to be a little different in the past, but boy, cost of everything has just gone through the roof, and that's with our cost of production, same thing. So going to be some tight numbers here for production and returns.
Yeah, you feel like this is kind of a tight year financially, just kind of live to fight another day?
Yeah, I mean, going through the meetings in wintertime, there's not a lot of profit margin in a lot of these crops unless you get a really good crop, and never guaranteed an excellent crop, I guess.
Yeah. Well, the couple farmers we've talked to so far from Ontario, Tyler and Kevin, they both mentioned, some of the concerns over some of the tariffs and things like that. But I know that you spent a lot of time in farm, the farm politics side of the equation with some of the checkoff orgs. A lot of concern right now about what's Canada's opportunity to trade going forward.
Well, I mean, that is a huge concern, especially on the canola side of things. The canola meal, most of our canola meal goes into the U.S., either into the California or Wisconsin dairy markets, a huge market for us, and a 25% tariff on that would be rather rough or devastating, so to speak. But the silent one is the China one. There hasn't been much talk on those tariffs going into China, and that is also very significant, especially when you consider the amount of canola that usually ends up in China. I know it's not on the seed right now; it's more on the oil and the meal. However, that everybody's so silent on the whole China thing is kind of weird.
That's interesting that you think that people have been quiet on China, but people are aware of the canola issue with the U.S.
That's right. That's
really?
That's the sentiment around the coffee shop tables, at least. Very not a whole lot of talk about the China issue, but a lot of talk about the U.S. tariffs.
Okay. In general, the U.S. tariffs I think there's a lot of Western Canadian farmers that don't understand how important the U.S. market is on canola, especially in renewable. You mentioned the meal, but there's also the oil for renewable diesel. I think to me, I think a lot of people, if you were to ask them, they think China before they think America on canola. So that's kind of fascinating. What else are people saying around that coffee shop?
Well, I guess the return or the cost of production is a big one, and the cost of everything, just like repairs, new machinery is kind of out of reach for a lot of guys. But in general, those are the two issues, and it is concerning because normally those aren't the big factors that are going into a spring. Being so concerned about trade and is there going to be a market for all our stuff that we're planning to grow.
Yeah, and I've spoken a lot about our audience's viewpoints on, what Canada needs to do from a trade perspective. What camp are you in, Jack? Because I'll give you the four camps. Okay, there's it's America. Like, we have to have a trading relationship with the U.S. The rest of it's noise. Then there's others that say to me, hey, it's all about China. China's our next partner. Then there's people that say that Europe is really where we should be focusing. And then there's the fourth bucket is people that believe that interprovincial trade barriers, getting those down, that's the key to all of our success financially. So which bucket would you be in?
Well, I would put it this way. The world wants a U.S. market, and we've got it. We've got to find a way to save face and make the trade happen. Because it's the best market, it's the closest market. Should be very easy to do the marketing if we had some kind of an economic union with them, cross-border stuff. That would be the first place I'd be looking at. And like I say, the trade routes, everything is there. If you want to ship offshore, there's all kinds of nuances that you have to go through with trade. And we know how quickly things change in the trade world. We had that several years ago with China, and one little mishap on the Canadian government, and our market dropped $2 a bushel. Right?
Yeah.
These things aren't nearly as significant as the American market, and when looking at it, they asked us to clean up our border and spend a little more money on defense. I think that's very small order compared to losing that market and the kind of money that's at stake here. Yeah,
you know what? Regardless, we should be spending. I think Canada should be spending more on defense. That's my opinion. It sounds like you agree with that.
Totally agree with that. I mean, we got so much wealth in this nation, and a lot of it's up north. And who's protecting it? We're not even protecting it ourselves. We should be.
So stay in that Winkler coffee shop for a second. I'll ask you, what's the thoughts about the election? What are people saying there, Jack?
Well, this is a fairly blue country here, and we like some of the proposals that have been put out by Polyev, especially the one on the capital gains tax.
Yeah.
Where if you sell, you reinvest in Canada, and you can defer the tax. For farmers and for business people, I mean, that's got to be great. Most times there's all these taxes that are due, and you can hardly shift the operations from one generation to the next without huge implications, and this would certainly help an awful lot in doing that. Yeah,
I'm sure you were happy about. Well, we know the Conservatives have been trying to get rid of this carbon tax for a long time. Axe the tax has been Poilievre's theme. Now we got the Liberals even saying, Jack, celebrating, trying to get rid of the carbon. What's going on? Has hell frozen over, Jack?
What a turnaround. Even the NDP talking about what's going on here. For years and years, this was the top of their agenda, and now all of a sudden things have changed. Let's just hope it's actual fact that they're actually going to follow through, whoever gets elected, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, hey, Jack, I just want to wish you all the best in 2025 planting, and we'll talk to you when we start to see some green out there in the fields, okay?
You betcha. Sounds good. Thanks, Shaun.
And we'll be right back here on RealAg Radio for the rest of the Farmer Rapid Fire, brought to you by Corteva Agriscience.
Find everything you need for outstanding weed control in your wheat and barley from the cross-spectrum herbicide experts at Corteva. Corteva is proud to offer a wide selection of cross-spectrum herbicides for maximum convenience, effective resistance management, and customized control of your toughest grassy and broadleaf weeds. No matter what kind of weed challenges you're experiencing, we've got the right fit for your farm. Visit Corteva.ca to learn more.
It's summertime, and you've got a lot of important decisions to make when it comes to your corn crop. Let the Corn School on RealAgriculture.com help guide you through those big decisions with input from leading experts in the field. If it's spray timing, disease identification, or any other field issue, the Corn School's got you covered. The Corn School on RealAgriculture.com, brought to you by BASF and Pride Seeds.
And we take the Farmer Rapid Fire to Osler, Saskatchewan, and we're talking to Josh Lade. Josh, how are we doing?
Yeah, good, thanks, Shaun. Yourself?
Hey, pretty good. What's happened on the farm this week?
We are hauling a little bit of canola at the moment, actually. We've taken advantage of the little price jump here and, sending a bit in. So that's what's happening, and just getting the finishing touches to the drills ready and hoping for some snow melt next week.
Yeah, you still got some snow on the ground?
Yeah, for sure. We, especially through this Osler, Warman area, last weekend got quite a good dump, and actually the weekend prior. So, yeah, we got the stubble's still full in this area, that's for sure. But down towards the city, Saskatoon, it's starting to melt away, but just north we're very white.
Yeah, and you've obviously still got some frozen ground, or I guess maybe a well gravel drained yard to be able to get some, get the trucks in and out of the yard to get close to those bins.
Yeah, no, we're pretty fortunate that way, that we're well set up with a well gravelled yard, and yeah, so that's working well, and it's not too slushy at the minute, but kind of hoping it would be, Shaun. I'm getting pretty excited for the springtime to get out there.
Are you getting itchy?
Yes, I am. Yeah, it's been a long winter.
Yeah, I hear you there, man. I hear you there. So, any changes to the cropping plan for this year?
No, we haven't. We're going to stick to, we grow canola and wheat pretty well up here, north of 16, north of Saskatoon. So that's a big part of our plan, and 25% of the rotation will be a mix of peas and lentils. But yeah, a good chunk canola, good chunk of wheat. There's no barley or oats on the board at the moment, but maybe they're the sleeping dogs to jump on. But no, we haven't changed too much at all, really. Especially, there was some discussion of it in the last few weeks when canola dropped away, but I feel like cooler heads will prevail there, and we'll see some good prices again. Got to keep optimistic, don't you?
Yeah, the market's responded higher. It's. I haven't looked at the future here today, but earlier this week we were back to where we were prior to those tariff announcements by China, right? So
yeah, and it just seemed like prior to that the fundamentals looked like we weren't going to have a big carryout in canola, and even wheat looks pretty bullish as well. It's just policy and I don't know, people's egos getting in the way of it at the moment, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah, it seems to be there's a lot of egos rolling all over the place, my friend. No shortage of that. So tell us a little bit more about the operation, Josh. What your for some people that don't know their Saskatchewan geography very well, where are you in the province?
So we are really much straight north of Saskatoon by only about 20 minutes.
Oh, nice.
Our main yard is based in just north of Osler, but we're fortunate enough to farm right around like north and south of Osler, sort of up towards Roston, and then over towards Langham. And in the last few years, well, actually 2018, it's gone back a while now, but we purchased we call it a bit of our satellite farm over near Jansen, Saskatchewan, just south of the BHP potash mine. So we are very much spread around, and although at times it is a bit of a logistical nightmare, especially through these dry years, that farm out east has been a real winner for us. So we're spread out over quite a big area. I'm a native Australian, so I grew up in Australia, and I actually managed to work in with a family farm here now. So we sort of farm as a joint venture with a father-son duo.
Nice.
John and his wife Janice, and Ray and Jen, and myself and my wife Jeannie. So yeah, we run a grain farm joint venture just north of Osler. Yep.
And when you do have like a satellite operation like you phrased it, and it is quite spread out, what are some of the challenges you deal with? Like I think a lot of times people think of equipment. Like, if you're sharing equipment between those two operations, that can be a challenge. What are some of the things that you have to deal with and logistically plan for?
Yeah, that's definitely number one. I think what we did from the start off when we thought about this was we're not animal farmers, so it's not as if this is a logistical nightmare every single day. It is literally something that we've got all year to figure out how we're going to make it work down there. So we seed that 2,700 acres to one crop every year. So it's its own crop. We do transport our drill. We try and get our drill. We get our drill over there. But it's just one of those things where, as long as we are, as long as we have a plan in play, and we generally, because the other thing that helps with that farm is it's generally a bit later as well. So we can kind of finish up here and then move down and get that one done. And harvest time's much the same. It's just we find that with the equipment mix that we have, we can go down there and get that job done within a week for the most part. So we can kind of find ourselves, over the last 6 years anyway, being able just to make it work between weather cycles, if that makes any sense, Shaun. Like as in, we're not often getting caught out with the rain, although now I'll say it now, and we will this year, no doubt. But it's more just because we've got a decent fleet of equipment, we can go down, get it done, and then come back. I think if it was any bigger with our size operation, it might, if it took 2 weeks to get the job done, I think that would turn into 3 because you're going to have weather issues potentially. So that part works pretty well, is just keeping it one crop, and we just rotate that year over year has probably been the biggest one. And then as far as, I guess, the grain marketing side, we always generally sell a good chunk of grain off the combine, and that's definitely a farm that we try and move as much as we can off the harvester into some receival sites, so it's just not becoming an issue for the rest of the year, and we'll generally hold more grain back at home here. So those would be probably the big ones, I'd say, Shaun, that would kind of cause us the headaches. But like I said, we have most of the winter to try and figure out how we're going to do it, and then just execute it over a week at seeding and a week at harvest and a few days spraying.
Yeah, well, in having a plan and executing, I think that's kind of resonates with any farm, many farms that are listening to this show of all shapes and different sizes, some with, all one location or multiple locations. It's having that plan and rolling with the punches and knowing what plan B, C, and D are and executing it, right? That's all you can really do.
Yeah, and you kind of nailed it there. You got to have the A, B, C, and D. You need all of them because we like to paper play through the winter, so you farm on paper, but the reality of what Mother Nature's going to throw, or once we get out there, but just as you said, make sure you have a few different options of how it's going to work. And I don't know, at this point we enjoy the challenge, but we're, rating myself for, in our 30s, but maybe when we get older, an older farmer might be like, no, that's too much. But at this moment, it was more just opportunity. It was hard to expand where we are, and we just took the chance, and so far it's been good.
Yeah, and I can't remember, Josh, how long have you been in Canada?
Full-time since 2013, so I guess that's 12 years now. But I first came over in 2009, and that was more so just to come over and see how you guys farm. And I'm from a farm actually on Kangaroo Island in South Australia, and I more of a sort of a sheep and cattle farm. A little bit of seed potatoes is where I sort of grew up doing, but the big machines and grain farming and just the prairies and the growing the crop through the summer here just was really fascinating to me. And summer jumped for a while, and then was lucky enough just with John sort of said, well, if you want to stick around here, we'll give you a job, and more of a full-time job, I should say. And then the opportunity came to rent a couple of quarters, and it's just sort of grown from there. So it's been, and my wife's actually Canadian as well, Shaun, but she's actually from Edmonton, so she's not, often that's you think you sort of marry the farmer's daughter, but that's not the case. It's just a unique opportunity, and it's just sort of grown. It's worked really well, actually.
That's great. That's a great story. I was just going to ask you, what's the main differences you see between farming in Australia versus the Western Canadian prairies?
The biggest one would just be the timing of operations. In Australia, if I just speak on the grain farming side of things, often I compare note to my Aussie cousins who are often seeding at the exact same time as us, but they'll, depending on the year, are often seeding their crop bone dry. So that they just start by the calendar, and they can generally start on that day every year, whether it's rained or not. They've got their farming system set up pretty well to do that now. Where, as you know, last year we actually seeded a few quarters on April 13th, so that doesn't even look close this year. So that was a huge eye-opener for me, was just that part. And that sort of worked into, wow, there seems to be a lot of equipment here per the acres, but it didn't take long to realise why that's the case.
Yeah.
As we just spoke of the differences in spring, but then at harvest time too, when we would start harvest on the farm back in South Australia, every day is getting hotter and drier, where here every day is getting shorter and colder. So that's the big one. I'm pretty passionate about the herbicide-resistant weeds too, growing up with those, having serious implications to farms in Australia where, it was really dictating what we could grow. And here we're seeing more and more of it, aren't we? It seems like every year we talk about it, but we still are fortunate enough to do what we want based on commodities and what's going to be the most profitable crop. But I don't know how long that'll be. Weeds might start to dictate the way we farm here, and that's certainly something that, I'm pretty passionate about, with, making sure we're on top of our herbicides, and, we've brought over a seed terminator as well and our combines just to help with that harvest weed seed control piece of the puzzle as well. So, that would be probably the big one for me.
Josh, that is great insight. I really appreciate the comment there about the resistant weeds and how in Australia weeds kind of dictate a lot more about what you're able to plant and grow, and need to do everything we can to try to prevent that from being the reality on the Western Canadian prairie, well, any area of North America. So I appreciate it, Josh. Looking forward to chatting with you again, and all the best to you here in the 25 growing season.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Shaun. Have a good one.
Hey, we'll be right back with more of the Farmer Rapid Fire here on RealAg Radio, brought to you by Corteva Agriscience.
If you're involved in the agriculture industry, it's important to stay informed on all the latest issues affecting your business. At RealAgriculture.com, we offer fast, reliable news, information, and insights to help you keep on top of all of the latest in Canadian agriculture. Visit RealAgriculture.com and sign up for our free daily newsletter covering everything from news, agronomy, animal agriculture, and much more. Visit RealAgriculture.com/subscribe today.
The Canola School on RealAgriculture.com is your one-stop shop for everything a canola grower needs. Check out our free video series on YouTube for all the latest in canola agronomy, research, marketing, and more. Don't have time to watch? Download the podcast version of the Canola School on RealAgriculture.com or anywhere you download your podcasts. Stay on top of all things canola with the Canola School on RealAgriculture.com, brought to you by BASF and Invigor Hybrid Canola.
And welcome back to RealAg Radio here on the Farmer Rapid Fire, brought to you by Corteva Agriscience. We're joined right now from Corteva. It is Rhett Duke. He's the technical sales agronomist for Southern Saskatchewan with Corteva Agriscience. Hey, Rhett, how are we doing?
Good. How are you doing today, Shaun?
Pretty good. Hey, you got some snow on the ground out there?
Yeah, you know what? We're still hanging on to a little bit here in Southern Saskatchewan, and kind of been a nice slow melt, quite frankly. So I think hopefully recharging a bit of those reserves as we head into spring season and giving the growers some optimism as we approach our busy season here.
We are fast approaching it, though. Like it's we're into April, right? So it's here before you know it, and you know I know there is some seed going on the ground in the northern plains of the U.S. So it's encroaching itself north, so to speak. You know, during the commercial break, we were talking about kochia, and you had described kochia very well. Resistant kochia has officially reached celebrity status this winter. I think that's a great way to put it.
Yeah, you know what? That's definitely a topic that I cover quite a bit in my travels here in South Sask, Shaun. And you know what? I refer to it as a celebrity, and it's kind of tongue in cheek because it's really for all the wrong reasons. You know, this kochia plant we're trying to deal with today, we all understand incredibly competitive, especially when we go through some of our traditional Western Canada conditions, i.e. hot and dry. And, you know, unlike some of our field crops that we're growing, this stuff is able to tolerate some very saline field conditions, you know, where our crops can really struggle. So I think, you know, a lot of my conversation with customers and retails at this time of the year is just trying to wrap our heads around how are we going to forge a plan to effectively manage this weed that now has claimed resistance and is well documented in being resistant to group 2, 4, 9, and 14 herbicides. So our options are limited. And, you know, with what we have on the marketplace today, we do have to think about using them strategically and not alone in a silo, also incorporating some of those cultural practices ultimately to improve the competitive ability of our wheat and barley crop.
Yeah, you know, somebody had asked me, so where does kochia really thrive? And I said, where there's soil.
Yeah, exactly.
It seems to, and then we can laugh. It's such a big problem. We can laugh about it. You have to, or else it just makes you kind of cry. Okay, so knowing all those different groups that kochia has some resistance to in different forms or fashions, depending on your own farm. What do we do? What like we just can't give up and say we'll just let the kochia take over. We got a crop to plant and harvest here. So what's the best thing to do, Rhett?
Yeah, you know what? I think for a lot of growers and folks like myself, we do like to think around, you know, rather than just throwing up our arms and saying, you know, we can't win this battle, we're going to think about how we can. And, you know, a lot of what I think when I hear the news and the media come through with new updates, and today was no different, actually. The Canadian agronomist published a report around group 14 kochia being found in Southern Saskatchewan. And I think it's important for folks to understand that when we do identify resistance to herbicide groups, we do not want to throw those tools out of our toolbox. We need to continue using them to manage other weeds that are in the field, but we also have to consider how we can rotate and utilize different tank mixtures year over year as part of a long-term management strategy, so that ultimately we're able to stay ahead of this kochia weed and maintain a level of yield and profitability on our farms.
So same practices with some other resistant weeds, like, multiple modes of action, herbicide layering. Those are the things that we're supposed to do.
Yeah, you bet. So I think, to me, it all starts with that pre-seed burn down, right? We need to make sure that we're controlling kochia when it's very, very small. So utilizing a pre-seed add-in, something like Corex2 with your glyphosate, is going to do a good job at getting that initial hit on kochia. And then after that, I think what farmers need to do is focus on establishing a healthy and competitive cereal crop. So doing a lot of those things in your control, like utilizing a good seed treatment to maintain that early season vigor, get it out of the ground quickly, start to, cover some ground and hopefully get it into a position where it starts to choke out some of the subsequent flushes of kochia that, are definitely prone to happening to us here in Western Canada.
Yeah. Go ahead. Sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just going to finish my thought there. And I think as we move forward, in my chair, it's just becoming increasingly important for farmers really to make sure they're accurately keeping records over the herbicides that they're using on their cereal acre year over year, because this is going to enable this long-term management strategy that I spoke about in ultimately rotating between different groups and trying to keep an edge on this weed.
Yeah, and I think the key part there, this problem's not going away. Now, hopefully there are some magical solutions at some point, but that's I don't know if you can count on that. So I think your point there on the record keeping is a really good one. That this is the strategy that we are kind of relying on for in the near term. And so we need to make sure that we have those records. We know the groups we've been using and what we've been doing. Just not relying on brand names, but making sure that we have that more detailed information as we go forward. Because I know everybody out there doesn't have it, and it's okay. You could start now.
Yeah, exactly. And I think after we get that crop established and we're looking at what our options look like in terms of in-crop herbicides, I think one of the new ones here from Corteva, our new on-deck wheat and barley herbicide, does a really, really nice job at managing all those different types of resistant kochia that may be present in the field. This is a unique and a new combination of both a 6 and a 27 herbicide. So group 6 bromoxynil, as well as a group 27 called tolpyrrolate. These really come together to give you not only outstanding management of that resistant kochia, but are also able to tick off a large number of other resistant weeds we're battling within our fields as well. I'm thinking about a laundry list of group 2 resistant weeds that we know are well documented. And then, the unique differentiator for us with On Deck is that we're actually able to take down some resistant grassy weeds with this product without a group 1 or 2 graminicide in the tank. So stuff like group 1 and 2 resistant green and yellow foxtail, as well as group 2 resistant barnyard grass, you're going to get really good control of that and not apply additional selection pressure out in the field to those weeds.
Well, Rhett, it's been great to have you here today on RealAg Radio. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks, Shaun. Appreciate your time as well, and thanks for having me on.
Yeah, great stuff. That's Rhett Duke. He's technical sales agronomist in southern Saskatchewan for Corteva Agriscience, of course, the sponsor of the Farmer Rapid Fire. Make sure you talk to your local Corteva rep or your local retailer about products like On Deck. If you have any feedback on today's program, you can send me an email, shaney@realagriculture.com. You can, of course, find Real Agriculture anywhere out there in the social media world, or you can always call the Real Ag feedback line, 855-776-6147. Thanks, everybody, for getting real and getting connected with Real Ag Radio. Big shout-out to Corteva Agriscience, and we'll chat again tomorrow. Cheers, everybody.